I take a feather quill and I type with the end of the quill, just because it gives it a kind of folksy throwback feeling.
You want the American dream. You want the life, the liberty, the happiness. But until you get there, until you achieve your goals and make your dreams come true, you know what you have. You have the journey, the hustle, the climb. I'm Kelsey Humphreys, and this is The Pursuit, where I interview the best of the best in person on their home turf about how they got started, how they got to where they are today, and what you can learn from them about success. Prepare to be inspired, equipped, motivated, encouraged, and have a lot of fun.
5, 4. Kelsey, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Pursuit. This episode was crazy. I had to pinch myself when I pulled onto the lot in Studio City, California, where Brooklyn Nine-Nine is filmed, so I could interview Chelsea Peretti. What's crazy is on that same lot, like Seinfeld and Parks and Rec, tons of amazing shows were filmed there. I was just pinching myself, and it was very legit, like all these PR people, and we weren't allowed to take any B-roll, and we had to be escorted around. It was really crazy. And so we went up to the dressing room and knocked on the door, and there she was, totally chill, her and her dog. She excused herself to go get ready, and we set up in her little dressing room. The season had just started, so there wasn't much in there yet, and it didn't really feel like her personality, but I'm pretty sure that's because it was their first week back filming. And one thing that was kind of interesting was that she only could fit us in on her lunch break, and she had to go right back to shooting. And I think she was trying to figure out if she could get out of costume and get out of hair and makeup and be herself. And it ended up that she couldn't. So she said she was kind of a hybrid because she was still dressed in like her Gina costume from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And because of all that, what was supposed to be a 40-minute interview ended up being an 11-minute interview, which was a little bit terrifying for me because I had a lot that I wanted to cover, and unfortunately we just flat out couldn't get to it. So I had to get right to the meat. There's no game, there's no giveaway. I mean, we just focused right on the most important questions that I think people wanted to know. So she said a lot of inspiring and interesting, refreshing things. I think you will love her as always because she's hilarious, but I think you'll also love her insights on achieving success as an entertainer or a writer or comedian. So enjoy my interview with Chelsea Peretti. Chelsea Peretti is a stand-up comedian, writer, and actress who currently stars as the hilarious Gina Linetti on the Fox hit comedy Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Chelsea has appeared on Louie, The Kroll Show, Key and Peele, Tosh.0, and Comedy Bang Bang. Her hour-long comedy special, One of the Greats, premiered on Netflix in 2014 to critical acclaim. Chelsea has written for Parks and Recreation, Saturday Night Live, The Sarah Silverman Program, and Kroll Show. She has been praised as one of Variety's top 10 comics to watch, Comedy Central's Hot List Comedians, and in Variety Fair's 2013 comedy issue. She was also recognized by Time Magazine as having one of the 140 best Twitter feeds to follow of 2013. So thank you so much for letting us join you today.
Cheers.
Cheers. We are here in the Brooklyn Nine-Nine, what do we call it? What is this?
Well, this is a dressing room.
Well, that is correct. We are here, and she just fit us in right between shooting, so we are just so glad you could squeeze us in.
I have an incredibly generous spirit. Trying to play
I believe
both
that's
cameras.
true. Okay, let's start at the beginning. When did you know that you wanted to do comedy for your profession?
God, I guess after college.
Okay.
But I became funny in junior high.
Did you feel yourself become funny?
Definitely. It was a very strategic evolution for just self-defense.
Yeah,
And,
that
it really
makes sense.
aided in my rise to popularity, and it does to this day.
Now, when you went to college, did you major in theater or comedy or writing?
You know, I did not like the theater department at my college, so I did improv, and I majored in English with a writing concentration.
Okay. And tell us what happened post-college. How did your career get to this awesome level that it is at today?
Post-college, I was temping. I met a stand-up comedian. She told me about an open mic night. I was going to be doing acting and she got me to go to this open mic in New York City at the Parkside Lounge. It's on Houston Street. And, you know, it was awful, to be honest with you. But I don't know why I kept doing it, except that this guy, like, he tried to make out with me. And so then I wanted to go back the next week to make fun of him. So that's why I kept going, to make fun of others.
So you start doing stand-up.
That was it. So that brought me here. No, then, I mean, so much has happened. I did a lot of stand-up, started hosting my own shows and performing all around town. Then
Here in LA?
No, this is all in New York.
Okay.
All in New York. I went to school in New York, and then that's where I started stand-up. And then what happened next? I mean, my big break was Sarah Silverman. I met her on a show, and then when she had a job opening for a writer, she had, you know, I had a Skype interview, job interview. And that went well. They hired me, so I basically had been crying on my couch, fresh out of a breakup, like, what am I doing in my life?
Right.
And then got that job, and, like, in 2 days threw all my stuff in a duffel bag and came to dream country.
So let's go back a little bit. What do you think got you into those shows and into that steady flow of work that then eventually led to you meeting her and getting that opportunity? Because a lot of people might find some initial success with stand-up, but they don't get to where you've gotten. So what do you think were the keys to that?
Well, I think being a self-starter was good for me. I mean, I hate to be a person waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder. So I was always someone who would create my own show, and whether it was a stand-up show or whether it was a web series, I made some web series and got, like, Jonathan Winters to do it, and did festivals, and I feel like I'm forgetting something because
there is a lot. You did a lot.
But yeah, so, you know, I was always into, like, creating my own projects, and that's something that is even easier now, I think, for young comedians, there's so many different outlets now.
So what's your advice for someone who's just starting out and they're starting to make their own shows? What would you tell them?
God, I don't know. I mean, what's scary to me now is that everything's online, because when I started, it wasn't quite that way. I mean, I remember everyone being like, I now have a website, and it was like this huge thing. But now everyone records every second of their development, so that seems so embarrassing. Because when I look at my old joke books, I'm like, ugh, like I'm so glad it's written in a book that I can burn if I want to.
Right.
But no, I think just like it's just important to just, you know, try to find your voice, and it's okay to make mistakes and just keep making stuff. Like, I think just being passive is the hardest thing, because you're waiting for someone to spot you, and it's easier to write your own stuff.
So then once you started writing things, you start to have some success. How did you pick the agent that you partner with or the manager that you partner with? Because that seems to be kind of important, you know, that you pick someone that you trust, that has your best interests.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an evolving process, just like your creative life is. I mean, initially when you're starting out, no one wants to represent you because it wouldn't be lucrative for them. I mean,
right.
You know, and so I think as you get better, then when you're still not doing a ton, but a little bit, you get representation that's not doing a ton, but that's who's interested in you. And then, like, once you have more stuff coming along, that's when, you know, in my experience, but I'm sure some people maybe have had a different experience, but, you know, it tends to be when things are going amazing, that's when everyone starts coming for you.
Right.
So you kind of have to find people who believe in you in the beginning. And I always had this philosophy of just, like, go wherever the energy is. So don't try to bang down the door of some comedy show that doesn't want me. The one person who likes me, who runs a show, just do their show every week. You know, that was always my philosophy, but you have to kind of do what's organic to you. You know, some people just throw everything at the wall and do every single show they can. I was more like, I'll be selective and go where I feel wanted, and just try to, like, grow a positive energy that's already there. So that worked for me, but then it gets harder when you have more options and more positive energy. Pretty soon you're like, oh, I still have to, like, eliminate something, you know.
So how do you choose now?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. I mean, you know, there's times where you think, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I have no idea if I should do this or not. You know, something's, it's like, could be fun. You know, like initially your goal is so clear. You want to make money and be able to support yourself.
Yes.
And you want to be, you know, funny, and you want people to respect you. And then when some of those things start taking hold, it's hard to know exactly what your motivator is, you know? So it's constantly... The good news is it doesn't get boring because you always have new lessons to learn.
Let's go back. You mentioned creative life. Talk a little bit about your writing process, how you got better as a writer, your writing advice for others.
My writing process is, and this is going to sound crazy, but I take a feather quill and I type with the end of the quill, just because it gives it a kind of folksy, throwback feeling and gets me into my poetic place.
Right on.
I don't know what my writing process is. I like to be in sweatpants. I'm a big promoter of that attire. And I like to be on my couch. I like blankets. Like, I like good music playing. Like, for me, like, a chill environment is good. I think some writers really thrive on, like, sitting and waking up at 8 a.m. and being regimented. And I've always enjoyed what I've produced more when I'm, like, in a more relaxed headspace.
And what's it like to write for a show like Parks and Rec? What is that experience like?
That show was so fun, and because you have this room, to me it was like, it felt like I was in like fun grad school, because you have this room of people that are so smart, and you go on tangents. You know, they would allow us sometimes to go on tangents, and it would be hilarious, and these debates that would get so like just insanely, you know, intense debates about the silliest things, like, you know, what cake is the best in Los Angeles. And it would just get like, you know, one time I was talking to Harris Whittles and I was like, I hate you, no bit. Like, you know, like bits, or, you know, like in the comedy room, it's like we're doing bits or whatever. And everyone was like, you know, it was like, how can things have gotten to this point? But it's like, you know, it was just so funny. Like, I can think of so many different crazy debates we got into, and that's what a lot of times what I miss.
Tell us what your day is like right now, and what the biggest misconception is about people at your level of success, professional full-time actresses.
Well, my day today, I mean, this is a very atypical week because me and Captain Holt have gone off to go work in public relations, so we're not in the office. So this week I've only had to shoot one day because we're separated off so we can shoot all our scenes together in one day. Usually, you know, you're in the background of other people's scenes and things like that. So my day is very busy today, but it's fun because it's all the Holt and Wunsch and Gina in this new environment, you know, and totally different statuses that are at play. So it's been fun, especially watching those two go after each other. Yeah.
Everyone is obsessed with Gina. People were freaking out that I got to interview you, and they love your character and they love your work. So what do you think the biggest misconception is?
About me, Gina, life, Hollywood.
Hollywood, maybe, or actresses, professionals in this industry.
I think that this is going to be controversial, but I think there's this misconception that I had, and I know a lot of people had, that like actors are just really spoiled and their lives is really cushy because they're actually, and this is like when like models complain their job is hard, like the job is great, but it is harder than I thought it would be in certain ways. Just like the hours can be long, and it's challenging to like memorize your lines and say them how you had them in your head, and also hit your mark, and you know, also find your light, and also there's just a lot of different things at play that that make it harder than, and also 5:30 a.m. call times. So just hoping people will send me like condolences cards.
Okay, I think they need you. So last bit of advice.
Yes.
If you were sitting down with an aspiring comedian or actress. No.
Right?
You're
Should
not.
she? No. Should she?
No. If you were sitting down with them and they could pick your brain, what's the number one piece of advice you would give them?
I mean, the cliched advice that all comedians are going to give aspiring comedians is just get on stage as much as possible. And it's like no one wants to hear it because you want to hear, actually, if you go through this doorway, you're a star. Yes. But the thing is like it's really hard to find your voice and stand up, and it takes years to kind of like get as comfortable as you are with your friends and get to that part of yourself that's not really guarded and, you know, trying too hard and stuff. So I think it's just, you know, get up as much as you can, I think.
All right.
But also, like, just don't try to be too tough. I think that's the problem with a lot of stand-ups.
They don't want to get vulnerable, or?
Yeah, like I know a lot of guys that if you're talking to them, they'll say something really sweet or vulnerable or kind of funny, but, or like whimsical or, you know, whatever, but on stage they get into this like, this is how life is, and blah, 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 and it's like, I think it's a protective thing, and I used to do that myself, like in New York a lot more, and I think it's like a protective thing, like, because it's just, it is so vulnerable to get in front of a room of people. So it's like putting on your little armor, you know. That's why I was saying there should be a comedy club called Men Shouting Opinions. I think that would.
I don't know if anyone would go. Maybe. I mean,
you might be surprised.
All right. Well,
that.
I know that they're motioning. You've got to go. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it, guys. This has been Chelsea Peretti. I'm Kelsey Humphreys, and this has been The Pursuit.
Here are my key takeaways on achieving success from my interview with Chelsea Peretti. Number 1, be a self-starter. She said that the key to her success was that she wasn't waiting around to be discovered. She created her own stand-up shows, her own web series, which is great because any of us can do that. Create your own material and create your own opportunities. Number 2, practice, practice, practice. She said she knows you don't want to hear it, but her advice to aspiring entertainers is the same advice that everyone gives aspiring entertainers, which is to get up there. She said it's hard to find your voice and you really need the experience. However, she added something interesting, which is number 3, get vulnerable. She said that she thinks one of the biggest problems for aspiring comedians and even some established comedians is that they don't want to let their guard down, which I thought was great advice for anyone who creates. If you're putting your work out into the world, it's very tempting to put a wall up, but don't do it because you have to find your true voice, which usually involves getting vulnerable. And lastly, when you're out there practicing, number 4, go where the energy is. I thought this was really interesting. She said instead of trying to get as much exposure as she could and doing every single show, she would just focus her energy where she already had a good thing going. I think this is awesome and very applicable in today's social media, digital media world where a new channel pops up every day or new this or new that. Do you have a Periscope? Do you have a blog? Are you on Twitter? Are you doing all these things? Maybe instead of adding, just focus where you already have some good energy going and reinvest there.